Today feels like the second time in my life that I'm being carried off the shoulders of others. I have never worked a day in my life. I went from player to coach to a broadcaster, and I am the luckiest guy in the world.
We lost our friend, Jeff Dickerson, the other day. I was an intern for Jeff in 2007. He showed me kindness from day one, and if you ask anybody and what they want to say about Jeff, they'll say the same thing. Kindness from the moment you met the guy, a smile on his face, one of the most respected, kind individuals I've ever been fortunate enough to meet. We're going to miss you, pal. We appreciate you, Parker, as well.
Let's go!
Here the give is taken by Montgomery. And how about this start for the Bears? Where does Glennon go here on 3rd and 2? They protect him this time. It's deflected and picked off. And more disaster for the Giants. It's to Sean Gibson. Back in the end zone. It is caught. Mooney. Touchdown. Glennon looking at pressure. Football is loose again. That's it. There it is. Robert Quinn getting to Glennon, and he has just set a new single-season franchise sack record for the Chicago Bears.
And coming at you live from just the basement, not the basement of the basement, we've been upgraded, of WCPT 820 in Chicago. This is the Sports Cubicle, where the inmates run the asylum, and the boss, well, he's going to yell at us on Monday morning because we're working overtime. Now, you're probably listening right now going, this isn't the family meeting. This isn't Eric Grant. That's not Richard Chew in the chair across from him. They'll be back next week, guys. So, like I said, this is the twice in a lifetime as we present. So, the family meeting will be back next week. Don't you worry. But the man across from me, he's not Richard Chew. He's Mike Mercado. What's up, Mercado?
What's up, Devin? What's going on, Chicago? Happy New Year, everybody. It was an interesting week in sports. The Chicago Bulls are back, and the Bears found themselves on the win column. But is it a win if nobody cares?
Is it a win if they beat a guy the Bears had for how many years? or not even a full year?
It's going to be an interesting show today. We want to make sure that everybody is staying in touch with us. Everybody is going to be interactive on this very special edition of the Sports Cubicle. You can follow us on Twitter at Sports Cubicle TV. We are live right now on Facebook at the wonderful Facebook page of WCPT 820. Of course, check out the SoundCloud at WCPT 820. And if you missed any one of the past interviews, any one of the past shows, we're all over the universe on your favorite podcast platform at Mercado Airwaves Network and on YouTube at Mercado Airwaves Network. Devin, one of our teammates has subbed back in.
I know. If you're watching the Facebook Live, you saw this man dancing. He's the Paulacious one, Paul Chivari. What's up, Paulie?
Just had to take care of some business.
It's
Glad
funny
to
you
be back.
say that, Paulie, because the one who's on the run right now is the marvelous one, Dan Marver. What's up, Marver?
Oh, I'm on. You know, I missed the game, but it looks like we got a franchise quarterback in Andy Dalton.
Yeah, the guy you wanted when they brought in Mike Glennon, the guy we faced this week.
That's correct.
As you heard at the start of the show, it's been a sad week in sports, guys. We lost two icons in sports, in John Madden and Jeff Dickerson, and I couldn't think of anyone better to have on the show today than the man, the myth, the legend himself, the king, the man who's actually met and knows these guys. He's the Rewind Sports 60s Jerry Riles. What's going on, Jerry?
What's up, Tingle? How are you, buddy?
Doing fantastic. Wish we were calling you with better news, though, Jerry.
Yeah, you know what? I appreciate the phone call, and I appreciate you reaching out. But first, I have to say hello to the great Mike Mercado. How are you, buddy? How you doing?
Happy New Year to the man, the myth, the legend, Jerry Riles. Jerry, you know, normally when we ever have you on, it's because there's some breaking news, or what should have been the case where we were highlighting the Chicago Bulls making their claim as the number one team in the Eastern Conference, but you yourself being one of these guys that is a stalwart in our little media family, and hearing the terrible news that we had for Jeff Dickerson. This is coming off of him losing his wife just a few years ago, and the outpouring that came for Parker Dickerson on the GoFundMe page that Adam Schefter retweeted out, and we saw people from Jim Irsay to the Chicago Bears, the Blackhawks, the Bulls. I mean, you know, you having your family tree when it comes to the people you've helped brought up in this industry, including the boys here in the Sports Cubicle, seeing somebody like Jeff Dickerson leave way too early, what does it do to somebody like you?
Wow, you know, thank you again, and of course, hello to Paul Chivari and the marvelous one, Dan Marver. But it was devastating, to say the least, to be honest with you. And the way we all found out is just a testament to who Jeff Dickerson was as a man and as a person. He did not want pity. He didn't want people, crying out, and he didn't want people feeling sorry for him. So he kind of kept it quiet and personal, and just let a few of his current colleagues know what he was going through. So when the news actually happened and it spread like wildfire, it was totally devastating to hear. Obviously, as it's been discussed, and everyone who's been following the story knows and are aware of his wife passing away just a mere almost 3 years ago from battling cancer her own self. And then, of course, his young son, Parker, who he loved dearly. To hear what happened to Jeff at such a young age, at 44 years, was just totally devastating. And for me, knowing JD and having worked with him and just, seeing him around the ballpark or, in the press box or at a golf outing or whatever the case may be, it was just, it was crushing because, and I tweeted out, I said, this guy was just a beautiful person. He was a real, genuine, solid, beautiful man, beautiful person. Not just a broadcaster, not just a coworker, but this guy was just a great, really a great individual. And it's been in this industry, whether it's radio and television, broadcasting, producing, or whatever the case may be. You don't really run into that many people who are just genuinely just good people, because it's a competitive field, and there are a lot of type A personalities out there, and there are people trying to climb the ladder to accomplish their personal goals or reach to whatever heights they want to reach. Jeff was that person who was just a genuinely good guy. He wasn't that guy who was gonna try to cut your legs out from underneath you. He wasn't going to, backstab you, double talk you, or anything of that nature. He was just a great friend and a great individual. And I could just remember the old sports page at CLTV, hosted by Lou Canellis, and I acted as a co-host for a couple of years on that show. And we had JD on, and the great late Norm Van Leer was a guest on the show as well. Obviously, during the Bulls season, we're talking about what was going on with that franchise. And during the commercial break, Norm Van Leer, and we're talking Bears, and I think it was during the Dick Duran era, but we were talking Bears. And before we came out of break, Norm Van Leer told Jeff Dickerson, he said, "You know what? You keep doing what you're doing." He goes, "You are really, really good at what you do." And he said, "The reason you're so good is the fact that you stick to the facts and you bring it the way that fans want to hear and know what's going on with their team." And for Norm Van Leer to give that type of praise to JD, it was just said volumes. Obviously throughout the newsroom, and it was a very humbling experience for JD to get those great words from the great Norm Van Leer. So he touched everybody in a positive light wherever he walked, and he certainly will be missed for sure.
The godfather of the Sports Cubicle, Jerry Riles, joins us today. You can follow him all over the universe at OneReal, Jerry Riles, and of course at the Rewind Sports 60 on the app, on the website, all over the universe. You can see all of our work there as well. Jerry Riles is one of the best, and talking about the great Jeff Dickerson, one of the better guys in our industry, and you could see from the love that was coming. And, the hits, they were just coming, Jerry, and Paulie here being our local Raiders fan, and I don't think you just had to be a Raiders fan or a video game fan or a fan of movies to love this guy in the one and John Madden. I mean, the one and only. I mean, Paulie, I know you want to step in and talk to Jerry about this, but Paulie, when you heard the news, what did you think? And for somebody like Jerry on the line, seeing so much of just the entire career and how expanded so much of it, what did you see, and where would you go from this when you heard the Madden news?
Well, I knew he was, getting on in years, so it was only a matter of time. But it's always devastating when you lose somebody. And to me, he was broadcaster John Madden. I was too young to experience the coach John Madden era. But over time, as I learned about the history of the Raiders, just seeing how impactful he was as a coach, how young he was as a coach, and just how he really stuck to his guns and retired from coaching at 42 and straight up said, "I'll never coach again." People were trying to lure him in the 80s to come back, and he said, "No, I won't do it." And it's crazy to think that every step of the way he got better at the next gig. He was a great assistant coach, a great broadcaster, and then a great video game entrepreneur. At least was willing to put his name on it, but also wanted to have the control of the game itself, to make sure that it was realistic and fan friendly and just, and I think if you could tie, the coaching, the broadcasting, and the video games all together, I think the main thing that he was trying to do was try to spread the love of the game of football and try to incorporate as many people into that, man, woman, young, old, whoever, is invited to enjoy this game with everybody else.
Jerry, hearing that, what do you think the impact of losing somebody like John Madden was?
It's a great impact, and I was surprised that he passed away. Because they just had a Christmas special celebrating his illustrious life, and for him to pass, mere days after that, that's why I was surprised. Obviously, we know he was up there in age, and you hadn't heard a lot about John Madden, but for it to happen so close after the special that they had promoted for a few months now, it was still devastating and shocking to hear an iconic figure such as John Madden passing away. But, the interesting thing about him is the fact that, he said that he's lived a charmed life. To be able to coach in a National Football League with a great franchise and organization in the Raiders, and then go to the broadcast booth and make a tremendous impact there. And then, of course, with the video games, he's touched multiple generations over at least 5 decades. And that's a credit to a man who was just born to do what he did in this short life that we have. But I fell in love with John Madden years ago as a kid, watching him on the sidelines, coaching the Oakland Raiders. And, when football was really football, you had Fred Biletnikoff, you had Lester Hayes, and, this was the era where you could have stick-em all over your body and your uniform and your gloves. And Lester Hayes, he'd be going up against the Dallas Cowboys or, one of those Kansas City Chiefs teams or whatever the case may be, and he would stick the arm up and the ball would just literally stick on his jersey, or any parts of his body because of all the stickum that you can wear. And eventually that's how they outlawed it because of the abuse of the usage of it. But I remember those days with John Madden, patrolling the sidelines and barking out calls, and his Raiders would go out there. Al Davis loved him to death. And, one thing for sure, when you played that Raiders team, win or lose, and they were kind of like the Bears of the West Coast during a certain period of time. But you always knew you were going to be in a football game with the Oakland Raiders. Lester Hayes, as I mentioned, Jack Tatum destroying people on the defensive side of the ball. So John Madden, and you thought once he was done there, you were disappointed as a football fan. But of course, he transitioned to the broadcast booth, and he took that with Pat Summerall to another level. And it was entertaining to hear this man, a former head coach, describe the action and bring it into a real person perspective. And I also remember, doing the Thanksgiving games when he'd have the drumstick, and he was the one that came up with the idea, or his producers and director, they came up with the turkey with like 6 or 8 drumsticks, It's like, how did they do that? But they created that because if an offensive line, for instance, the Dallas Cowboys back in the day, if they won on Thanksgiving Day, they wanted to give a drumstick to all the offensive linemen. So you had to have more than one drumstick, and that was a creation of John Madden and that great illustrious team that they put together. And then obviously we all know about the video games. My son and I can remember we'd be up in the wee hours of the morning playing John Madden video games, and I'd be kicking his butt like at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and my wife would wake up and say, "What are you guys down there doing?" And we're like, "Nothing." But for him to transition his brand and his life from one stage to the next, and still be involved in the game at such a high level. And this is before ESPN, keep in mind. So the accessibility was limited, but he made it. He made it that you wanted to be involved as far as the National Football League is concerned. So he certainly will be missed, and he's made an incredible impact on the sport as well as our society, and obviously the world of sports all in all.
And Jerry, we actually have a caller who wants to comment a little bit on what you're saying. Jim from Chicago, you said you want to talk about back when what football used to be?
I was just talking about Jim McMahon. I was listening to the Notre Dame game, and Ryan Harris had lunch with Jim McMahon the day before. And he asked Jimmy, he said, "How long have you played?" He said, "I can't even watch football anymore." He can't even, and he was the best quarterback the Bears have ever had. He had a football sense that you can't buy. And he said it's such a different game, you can't even watch it. And today you've got Glenn Lennon out there. What's he making? $15 million a year, and he can't find his parking spot in the parking lot. I mean, the game has changed so dramatically with exponential money going through the ceiling. Owners worth $4 or $5 billion, and it's a completely different game. They have to protect it like you would Broadway stars on Broadway. You can't give them COVID. You can't. The show must go on. Anyway, you guys have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you for calling, Jim. And yeah, he does make a valid point. Let's transition on to the Chicago Bears game today. And good old Mike Glennon, he threw for a whopping total of 24 yards today, guys, and 2 interceptions. And 4 or 5 years ago, this was our guy. This was our quarterback.
This was Ryan Pace's, guys. Jerry, seeing what you've seen this entire season, you and I have had some really interesting conversations in the beginning of the season. Where we're at right now, I mean, we're all of us here. We don't like talking about people losing their jobs. Marver and I have talked about it, but what you see from this Bears team heading into the last week, next week, you believe, right, that this team looks like there's going to be total overhaul. We saw the report from Ian Rappaport today. I mean, where are you at with the Chicago Bears and their future moving forward?
No, I think we're 1 year removed. I think the Bears organization, they let this thing linger on too long. And you guys can remember, was it last year or whatever, that we had George McCaskey on with the Bears, and we talked about Nagy's future. And we know that they don't fire coaches during the regular season. And I don't really understand that. But, for them to let him stay on another year, it just pushed back the development and the growth and the direction that we want to go in as far as the city and as far as the organization is concerned. And the fans in Chicago deserve more. We deserve better. We support whoever is on the sidelines, especially for the Chicago Bears. But you have to earn your keep, and you have to prove your worth. And I just think that the Bears, for whatever reason, let this thing linger and go on longer and longer and longer. And I'm glad that Justin Fields is not playing. I thought that after he suffered the rib injuries a few weeks back, that they should have put him on the shelf. They allowed him to come back one game and play again. Obviously, he hurt the ankle, so he's out. But he wasn't going to grow and develop under this coaching staff. And I think that Nagy, in the hiring of him, was good on paper, obviously with the coaching tree and Andy Reid in Kansas City. But I think Nagy, being a first-year head coach, did not know and never learned how to adjust to put his ego aside. It always appeared to be Nagy, this is me. And he even challenged the media when they questioned some of his decisions and some of his moves. And I felt that Matt Nagy was too full of himself. He didn't have enough insight to say, you know what, I need to step back from me and let my coaches do what they're capable of doing, why I brought them in here, let the players do it. But he felt that his system, his logic, his way of thinking was the right way and the only way, and he tried to force feed everyone, not only in the building, but the fans alike, and eventually it just caught up to him.
He's the man, the myth, the legend, the godfather of the Sports Cubicle, Jerry Riles. You can follow him all over the universe. He's on Twitter at @OneRealJerry Riles. And, of course, the Rewind Sports 60. Check out the app. Check out the website. We can't let Jerry leave the show without having a little reunion with Dan Marver. Marver, before we let the good one, the best one of Jerry Riles leave us, you have any thoughts about what we've been talking about? Any final words for our guy, Jerry?
Of course. How about those Ohio State Buckeyes?
Buckeyes, Marver.
I thought you mentioned that first before anything else.
Marver.
So,
well, I have to give just due to again a great friend, Jeff Dickerson, what he meant to not only his coverage of the teams and the Bears here in Chicago, and what he brought to the broadcast industry. So I could not put the Buckeyes ahead of that. But what a game yesterday! What an incredible game, and the numbers that C.J. Stroud put up, and I mean, and these are with players. This is a team that had players that opted out of the Rose Bowl, either one because they're preparing for the next level, to play at the next level on Sunday afternoons, or they somewhat felt that because they didn't make it to the playoffs, the college football playoff, that the Rose Bowl wasn't meaningful enough. What a performance by the Ohio State Buckeyes! Record-breaking performance. God bless them. And you know what? The Big Ten. We started off good, but we kind of hit a bump in the road with the team up north falling, which I was happy for, and of course the Iowa Hawkeyes and Penn State going down. But the Buckeyes made a lasting impression, and that's a game that people will watch forever for sure. But no, it was fantastic. It was outstanding, and the Buckeyes certainly needed that victory for sure.
And Jerry, thank you so much for joining us today. Now, I believe we have an app. There's a Rewind Sports 60 app. There's a ROKU channel. You're on Fire Stick. There's that big satellite that hovers in the sky that tweets out the Rewind Sports 60. Am I forgetting any other way that you can watch or listen to the show?
Hey, man, let me tell you something. It's the Rewind Sports 60 brand is continuing to go global, no question about it. And I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to come on and talk with you. And I just want people to know, if you want to get the app, it's the rewindsports60.com. The app is available. Go to the App Store. You can go to Google Play, download the app for free, and obviously you'll get a chance to listen to the Sports Cubicle and all these beautiful voices and beautiful people that are on the air right now, because they are on the Roku channel. They're on the Fire Stick channel, the Apple and the Android apps as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, feel free. Download that app. We need all of your support. But before I go, I do have to say, I how they say hindsight. What is it? Hindsight is 20/20.
Yes.
Is that what they say? Mm. So it's interesting. Back to Jeff Dickerson really quick. So many people may know, many people may not know, but obviously I worked at the Score for 13 years, sports radio, from the beginning stages all the way through the early 2000s. And back in, I think it was 2001, maybe 2002, Jeff Dickerson, how we met and became friends, he worked at the Score. And he ended up jumping ship and going to WMVP, or ESPN at the time in its early stages. And we were down in Houston where the Cubs were taking on the Houston Astros at Minute Maid Park, and we were sitting in the press box. And Dickerson, we're sitting next to each other in the press box, and Dickerson more or less made me an offer. He asked me, he said, "Hey, Jerry, do you want to come on over to MVP and come over to ESPN Radio?" Because he had just been there maybe for a few months or maybe a year at the most. And he was, I guess, trying to recruit some talent to come over there to help get the station moving in the right direction. And at this time, I was the executive producer of the top sports show in the city of Chicago. And he was really pulling for me to come on over there and join him, to bring some name recognition and try to, get the station moving forward. And I did. Honestly, I had to think about it because, again, I was writing. I was doing pretty well with the show that I was producing, and I was like, I don't know, do I want to leave a championship type of situation to go over to another situation, albeit it's the ESPN brand, but I was like, I think I'm good here, and so I decided to stay. And obviously, when you look back on it, maybe that was the time to to jump ship and go on with Jeff Dickerson, and who knows what would have transpired from there. But I always remember that story for the simple fact that he felt enough love and confidence and support that he wanted to bring me along with him to help get things rolling down the dial. So I'll always be very grateful for the relationship and the friendship, but I just wanted to share that with you guys and their listening audience. Jeff Dickerson is one of a kind, no question about it. He certainly will be missed, and I'm glad that monies have been raised to help take care of his 11-year-old son, Parker, who I know many of us never would want to be in a situation like that, to lose both your parents in a matter of a couple years. So God bless the people who have reached out to help out and watch over Parker.
Thank you so much, Jerry. We appreciate everything, and we appreciate you sharing a kind word about one of the best in our industry, one of the good guys in the world. He's the one and only Jerry Riles. Follow him at the Rewind Sports 60 and on Twitter at Real Jerry Riles.
One quick thing before you go, Jerry. Did you say you were with the Score right from the beginning?
I came on. The Score started
30 years ago today.
30 years ago
today.
Yeah, 30 years today. I came on in April of '92.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
April of '92.
How crazy is it that 30 years to the day you're on the same frequency?
It's you know what, when we started, when I approached the general manager Mark Penske and I reflected on it, I was like, this is amazing how my career and how things unfolded. I started broadcast here in Chicago at 8:20, and of course to wrap up with my show, and obviously you guys are doing it. To be on 8:20, the frequency is just hey man. The only thing I can say is that we don't know where we're going and how we're going to get there, but the important thing to know and to do is to enjoy the journey, and I've enjoyed the journey.
We love you, Jerry. We appreciate the time. We got a lot still coming up here on Sports Cubicle TV, and it's always a treat to have the one and only Jerry Riles with us. Follow us on Twitter at Sports Cubicle TV. We have a jam-packed show.